I got a call from my bank asking if I'd authorized a wire transfer. I hadn't. Turns out my MIL had access to our joint account, and my husband said she needed it more than we did. She bought herself a vacation. When I called her, she laughed. You always spend on things that don't matter anyway. I froze the account, transferred my money out, and left them both a receipt taped to the fridge, labeled Final Withdrawal. I didn't think my marriage was perfect. No one's is. But I thought we were solid. We lived in Mesa, Arizona, in a modest single-story home on a quiet street. I worked long hours at the hospital, registered nurse, mostly night shifts, lots of overtime. I'd come home exhausted, feet swollen, back sore, but I did it for us. For our future. My husband Rick worked in insurance. Not flashy, not poor either. He had normal hours, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. We didn't argue much. He wasn't overly romantic, but I thought we were stable. That was always enough for me. We shared everything, including our money. One joint account for all expenses, bills, mortgage, groceries, savings. That was the deal from the beginning. No secrets. Or so I thought. That Friday afternoon started like any other. I was in the break room, halfway through a tuna sandwich, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something told me to pick up. Hi, this is Amanda from Wells Fargo's fraud department. Are you available to verify a wire transfer? I sat up straight. What transfer? A wire transfer for $8,200 was initiated this morning. We wanted to confirm if it was authorized. I felt my stomach drop. No, I didn't send any wire. Amanda paused. Do you know a Judith? My mouth went dry. Yes, that's my mother-in-law. According to our records, the login credentials used match the primary account holder, Richard W. Benson. My hands started shaking. I thanked her and hung up. Then I called Rick. He answered like nothing was wrong. Hey, what's up? Why is your mom sending money from our account? A pause, then a sigh. Because she needed it. Needed what? The money. You gave her $8,200? She's going to Florida. To visit friends. She hasn't been on a proper vacation in a while. She was in Sedona 3 weeks ago. That was different. She needed this. She needed $8,000 more than we need to pay our mortgage or our bills. Without even asking me? She's family, he said. Like that was enough. She's your family. I work 60 hours a week, and you let her steal from us. She didn't steal. She needed help. You spend so much money on stupid stuff, candles, plants, whatever. What's the difference? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth wouldn't work. My brain was trying to make sense of it, and it couldn't. I hung up. Later that night, I called Judith. I was trying to believe this was a mistake. That she thought Rick was the only one on the account. That she planned to pay us back. She laughed. Laughed. You always waste money on garbage anyway, she said. At least this went towards something real. Something that matters. That was when something inside me cracked. It wasn't just the money. It was the complete lack of respect. The betrayal. The smugness in her voice. The way Rick acted like I didn't even deserve to have a say. So I stayed quiet. I waited until the next morning. Then I opened my laptop, logged into the account. I froze it. Then I opened a new account in my name only at a different bank. I transferred every penny that was legally mine. I had kept track. I knew what I'd brought into the marriage. I knew how much I'd earned. I took it all. $27,403.19. I printed the confirmation page. I taped it to the fridge, right above the grocery list. In red Sharpie, I wrote, "Final withdrawal" underneath, in smaller letters. "Tell your mom I hope the beach was worth it." Then I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and walked out. I didn't answer when Rick called. I didn't go to work that day. I checked into a motel. And for the first time in years, I slept 8 hours straight. I figured Rick would come looking for me. I didn't think it would take him less than 24 hours. He showed up at the motel Sunday morning. I heard the knock before I even saw him through the peephole. He looked angry. Not sad. Not sorry. Angry. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there for a minute, just staring at him through the tiny circle of glass. He knocked again. Come on, Jess. Open the door. I opened it just a crack. Why? Because we need to talk. I stepped aside and let him in. He walked in like it was his place, like he wasn't the reason I'd run off in the first place. Really classy, he said, looking around the room. Leaving a note on the fridge like that. I figured you'd appreciate me being direct. He turned around. You emptied the account. That was our savings. No, that was my money. I calculated it. You want to argue over the numbers? Go ahead. I've got the receipts. He didn't respond. You gave your mother $8,200 without asking me. That's theft, Rick. She used your login, which means she had your permission. She needed it. She's not your child. She's not your responsibility. I was. And you chose her. He finally looked a little ashamed. Just a flicker. Then it disappeared. You're overreacting. I laughed out loud. I couldn't help it. You think this is an overreaction? He sat down on the bed like he owned the place. So what now? You want a divorce over one mistake. I didn't answer. I picked up my purse, pulled out a manila envelope, and tossed it next to him. What's this? Copies of the transfers. The login logs. The texts. Everything your mother said to me. And a letter from a lawyer I've already talked to. He flipped through the pages. His face changed. You're serious. You didn't just break trust. You handed it over and watched while she lit it on fire. I was trying to help family. You let her steal from your wife. She said you wouldn't mind. Because you told her that. Because you've spent so long brushing off my work, my effort, my money, that you convinced her I don't matter. He stood up, jaw clenched. You're being dramatic. I pointed at the door. You need to leave. You don't mean this. You're pissed, fine. But don't throw away our marriage over one slip. I didn't flinch. One slip? This wasn't a drunk text or forgetting an anniversary. You handed over our financial life like it was nothing. He started to say something else, but I opened the door and stared at him until he walked out. That was 2 days ago. I haven't gone back home. Not yet. But I've started moving money into my new account. Got a P.O. box. Called my lawyer again. Then yesterday, I got a text from Rick's sister. Why are you trying to destroy our family over money? You know Judy's health isn't great. Funny, no one mentioned her health before the money vanished. Now it's a defense. A shield. Then the real twist hit. I got an email from the bank. A request to reauthorize access to the frozen account. From his mother's name. She was trying to get back in. She still thinks she has a right to it. So I called the bank. Told them to shut it down. Permanently. Then I changed my phone number. And that's when I started planning something more. Because freezing the account wasn't the end. It was just step one. I thought cutting them off financially would be enough. That maybe, just maybe, they'd back off, realize what they'd done, and leave me alone. I was wrong. 3 days after I shut down the account for good, I got an email from Human Resources at my hospital. Hi, Jessica. Just confirming your resignation has been processed. Wishing you the best in your future endeavors. My hands went ice cold. I hadn't resigned. I called them immediately. My manager, Carla, picked up. She sounded confused. I thought you were leaving town? That's what your husband said when he dropped off your resignation letter. Said you were too emotional to do it yourself. I couldn't even speak. I felt my knees go weak, and I had to sit down. Carla, I said slowly, I never resigned. That letter was fake. I never authorized him to speak for me. A long silence on the other end. Oh my God, she whispered. Jess, I'm so sorry. We thought he was your emergency contact. He was. I spent the next 2 hours in HR on speakerphone, trying to explain the situation. They agreed to pause everything. Thank God my actual supervisor hadn't signed off on the final paperwork yet. But that was it. That was the moment I realized how deep it went. Rick wasn't just backing his mom. He was trying to destroy me. Quietly. Cleanly. If that letter had gone through, I'd have lost my income, my insurance, everything. And he knew exactly what he was doing. I drove back to our house that night. Parked across the street, sat in my car, watched the lights through the windows. I don't know what I was expecting to see. Maybe him pacing, panicked. Maybe his mom packing. But it looked normal. That pissed me off more than anything. So I waited until morning. I walked right in at 7:15 a.m., used my old key. Judith was in the kitchen in one of my sweaters, drinking coffee like she lived there. She jumped when she saw me. "Jessica." "Judith," I said, walking past her. "Nice sweater." She opened her mouth, probably to make some snide comment, but I cut her off. "You forged my resignation." Her eyes flickered. "Excuse me, don't act dumb. I got the email. You and your son are playing a dangerous game." Rick came around the corner. "What are you doing here? You tried to tank my job. That's a crime." He scoffed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. You're the one making this hard. You stole from me. You sabotaged me. And now you're going to find out what that costs." Judith rolled her eyes. This is what happens when people with too many feelings get power. I turned to her. "You think I'm powerless? Watch me." I walked into the home office, opened the filing cabinet, and pulled out every financial document I could find. Tax returns, retirement accounts, joint assets, mortgage info. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. I just took what was necessary. Rick stood there frozen. "You can call the cops," I said. "But I already filed a police report. About the money. About the resignation letter. About everything. You wouldn't." I smiled. "Already did." And I left. The next week, I got a call from Detective Rivas with Mesa PD. "We're looking into the identity fraud and wire transfer issues," he said. "It may take time, but if we find proof of forged documents, there will be charges." It was the first time in weeks I felt hope. But that wasn't all. Turns out, Judith had a little side hustle she hadn't told anyone about. A GoFundMe, set up under Rick's name. Helped my mom rebuild her life after loss. The page had raised over $14,000. Every photo was her looking sad. Every word made it sound like she was a widow struggling to pay rent. She claimed Rick's father had left nothing behind. Claimed Rick was broke. Claimed I had abandoned the family after draining the account. I reported it, but not before taking screenshots. Dozens. And I sent them to every single person who donated, with a link to the Sedona vacation photos, the Florida hotel receipts, and a photo of Judith wearing a $300 spa robe she'd posted on Facebook with the caption, "Deserved this after a rough year." The replies I got were pure rage. People demanded refunds, threatened lawsuits. Judith shut down the page 2 hours later. And that's when she made her first real mistake. She left me a voicemail. 37 seconds of her screaming, "You will regret this, Jessica. I will ruin you. You think anyone will want a bitter little nurse with no husband and no future? You think you can walk away like you're the victim? You'll come crawling back, and when you do, I'll make sure there's nothing left for you." I forwarded that voicemail straight to Detective Rivas. Now it's on record. And the best part? She doesn't even know what else I've got planned. It all moved fast after that. Detective Rivas called a week later. He said the voicemail, along with the bank records, the forged resignation, and the GoFundMe fraud, gave them enough to move forward. They opened a full investigation. I gave them everything: emails, texts, screenshots, the receipt I taped to the fridge. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes, without hesitation. That same week, Rick was served with divorce papers. I didn't do it quietly. I had the papers delivered to his office during a staff meeting. I heard from a mutual friend that he turned red, tried to laugh it off, but left work early. Good. I knew he'd lawyer up fast. But I was ready. I had documentation of every deposit I'd made, every transfer Judith authorized through Rick's login, every instance of money she took without consent. I wasn't just trying to win. I wanted them both exposed. I wanted them to feel what I felt, humiliated, used, betrayed. A month later, the police called. Judith had been arrested. Not for the wire transfer, yet, but for fraud related to the GoFundMe. Turns out, several donors had filed complaints. One was a retired judge from Tucson. She was furious. Said she wanted to make an example out of people who scam for sympathy cash. Rick called me that night. Blocked number. I don't know why I picked up. "You're happy now," he said. Voice low, bitter. "No. But I'm getting there. You destroyed her. She destroyed herself. You helped. She's old. She made mistakes. She committed crimes. And you let her. You didn't stop her. You covered for her. You almost got me fired." He didn't answer. I didn't just leave because of the money, Rick. I left because the second she laughed in my face, you stood behind her. Silence. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with all this," he finally said. "I didn't think you'd betray me like that. But here we are." Before he hung up, he said one more thing. "She's going to lose everything." "She should have thought of that before she called me bitter," I said. The divorce took 5 months. I got what was mine. He fought for the house, and he got it. I let him have it. The mortgage was mostly in his name, and the place felt ruined anyway. I started fresh. Rented a small apartment in Tempe, closer to the hospital. Took on more shifts. Rebuilt slowly. Quietly. Judith pled guilty to misdemeanor fraud. She avoided jail, but had to pay restitution to every GoFundMe donor. Public apology, too. Her smugness vanished the moment she had to stand in front of a local reporter and explain why she lied about being destitute while wearing a Rolex. She moved out of Rick's house not long after. Guess living with the man who helped ruin your reputation wasn't as cozy without a steady flow of stolen money. Rick called again, once. Said he missed me. Said things weren't the same. I told him I wasn't either. It's been almost a year now. I keep the final withdrawal receipt framed in my closet. Not out of spite, but as a reminder of how far I'll go when someone treats me like I'm disposable. People say revenge doesn't fix anything. Maybe, but it sure as hell kept them from stealing another piece of me. And that's enough.